Everyone. My name is Kim Maybon, and I am the board chair for the Corona Chamber of Commerce and owner of Creative by Design. Today is a great day. We've got some important updates ahead, and we appreciate you taking your time to join us. I will be sharing the agenda with our president and CEO, Bobby Spiegel. Bobby?
Hey, thanks so much, Kim. So appreciate all of you being on today. Our sponsor today happens to be the County of Riverside, and the pictured up here is our county supervisor, and she will be speaking later in the program. We're just so honored and privileged that the County of Riverside has partnered with the Corona Chamber in many different ways, and you'll be hearing more about their partnership through Karen as well as through Stephanie later on in the announcements. Back to you. Thank you so much to the county supervisor and Riverside County for being our sponsor.
Thank you, Bobby. A reminder to please use the chat button to ask any questions. Send your questions to the chamber host and we will verbally ask them at the appropriate time. Please welcome our Vice President of Communications and Events, Stephanie Shapiro.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm so happy to be here with you all today to share some announcements and things that are coming up. First thing is that we have some PPE available for all of you. This is in partnership with the County of Riverside. We have free hand sanitizer and disposable masks to provide to you, to our business community. So if you need those, you can either order them on our website or come visit us in the office anytime to pick those up. Also very exciting happening right now as we speak. It is Small Business Week. The Chamber is hosting an unofficial Small Business Week, and we are highlighting businesses all throughout our area. We have some contests going on right now where you can participate in helping us to promote small businesses and also possibly win some prizes. You'll notice on your screen some photo examples of some things that we've been doing over this last week with these I'm Here cards, going to visit our businesses, let them know that we're here and we're here to support them. And this is how you guys get involved, is you can actually guess where the chamber is on all these different occasions, and you'll get entries to win some really great prizes. So far, we have a $25 gift card to Eduardo's Mexican restaurant, $25 gift card to Burger M, a $50 MasterCard gift card from Altura Credit Union, a $50 gift card to the Field House at Silver Lakes. We've got gift cards to Taps, and we're still accepting more prizes. If you want your business to get involved as well, we are, of course, promoting those donors. Another way to get involved is to go visit these businesses yourself and take these photos using the hashtags Corona Chamber and CC Small Business Week so that we can find them and you give some extra exposure to those businesses that you love so much. So it's happening now through the end of the week, and we'd love to see what places you think that we're at. Next, I'd like to officially invite you to join us for our first in-person mixer of 2021. It's the Circle City Social, and we will be meeting on Monday, May 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Tacos Al Fuego on Main Street. Your admission will include appetizers and agua frescas. There is limited space available for this, both as attendees and as exhibitors. So if you're interested in participating, please visit that link on your on your screen right now. It's bit.ly/CCS May 10, or you can call us at the chamber anytime and we'd be happy to get you taken care of. Next, I'd like to share about the May-June issue of Corona Business News. If this is not something that you presently get, please make sure to connect with me in the chat so I can add you to our mailing list. We publish this bi-monthly newspaper to let people know what's going on in the greater Corona business community. There's information on all sorts of important things coming up, and we have extra copies here at the office if you need one or would like to become a distribution point for your business. A quick 90-day snapshot of what we have coming up that's also included in here. Later this month on May 21st, we have Supervisor Karen Spiegel providing the State of the County address as part of Good Morning Corona. We will be meeting in person outdoors at IHOP. We will also offer a virtual option for you to tune in and hear what's going on with the reopening and some more in-depth updates for the business community from our Riverside County Supervisor. You do also have early pricing that's in play right now, so definitely make sure to get your registrations in. The following month, on June 25th, we will be hosting the State of the City Address. We will be moving locations for Good Morning Corona starting in June. We will be at Eagle Glen Golf Club. The State of the City Address will be presented by Corona Mayor Jackie Casillas, and she will be providing a business-focused update. So all the things that a resident cares about, you know, parks and schools and stuff like that, that's wonderful. She will touch on that, but the majority of this is going to be focused for you, the business community, and give you an opportunity to ask her some live Q&A. And the last event that I wanted to plug today is an economic summit we have coming up on July 22nd. Seems like it's far away, but it'll be here before we know it. We have partnered with the various chambers, the Yorba Linda Chamber of Commerce, Brea Chamber, and the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, to bring a regional look at what's happening in our landscape here. We have a guest speaker, Dr. Chris Thornburg with Beacon Economics and UCR. He is a phenomenal speaker. He is so accurate. He is very widely known for his predictions, and we're happy to bring him to the business community here and kind of help you figure out where to go next with your business, what's coming up, and how you can prep to be on the forefront of things. We have a presenting sponsor in United Paving Company, so we'd like to welcome them to the economic forecast, and there are other sponsorships and tables available now. Before I turn it over to back to Kim, I just want to say, you know, how much we appreciate you all being on this call today. Advocacy is a huge part of what we do here at the Corona Chamber. You're not only going to hear from our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson, but you'll hear from our Corona Police Chief about some upcoming legislation that affects you personally. I mean, right here at the local level, to state and federal, these things make a big impact, and part of what we do is educate in what's coming up so that we can take action together before it's too late. So we'll continue to share guidelines and regulations that's required, and just know that we're here and looking out for your business while you're in your business running it. So thank you for being part, and I welcome any questions should you have any.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anthony, do we have any questions?
There are no questions.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you, Stephanie. At this time, I'd like to introduce our County Supervisor, Karen Spiegel. Karen's unique passion for service and leadership in regional transportation issues, as well as regional partnerships and collaborations, make her a wonderful and energetic member of the community. She sets an example for us all with her roll-up-your-sleeves servant heart, which has led her to immerse herself in many civic, business, and community activities. Please welcome Karen Spiegel. You're on mute, Karen.
I was working on that one. So thank you for having me today. There is a lot going on right now in Riverside County and within our district. First, within our district, I do want to share that we're having a community cleanup, and it's taking Ontario from just under the freeway at 15 and down to almost Town Barns. So that whole area, that stretch that we utilize down into Old Temescal. So we'll be cleaning that up on May 8th. We're meeting at El Cerrito Park, and that's this Saturday. So if you'd love to help, we would love to have you. So if you have any more questions on that, our office, Wendell, can certainly help you. One thing that we're really reviewing very much in depth is the direct federal allocations from the American Recovery Plan. If you haven't heard that, that's the new CARES dollars. It's now called ARPA. And this time there are going to be substantial direct allocations to the cities. So we're going to get a payment in May this year and then May next year. So they're 12 months apart. So the amount we give you is going to actually be half this year and half next year. But the city of Corona will be getting 31.14 million. So they'll get 15 million this year and 15 million next year. What's interesting about this is an important component is it does provide for the ability if there was any revenue loss and can be utilized for backfill. Every city has the opportunity to use however they want to. Now for the county, ours is just under 480 million. So we get half this year and half next year. We have quite a bit different types of things that we are having to look at. And so we broke down, and we're still working on the exact designations. But obviously, our business assistance grants, recovery task force, all these key business, because the businesses have been hit the hardest. So we're going to dedicate a large chunk for the economic recovery, knowing that we need to work to help stand up our businesses. Public health, obviously, and continuing on with some of the situations that we're having to deal with. I know vaccinations is a very high factor that we need to get people vaccinated. We are not going to be mandating that. That's something that although I encourage you and want you to get a vaccine, that's a personal decision. And we just need to allow people that opportunity. And more people are getting vaccinated that weren't before. So we just need some help with that. We also are really focusing a lot on homelessness. We have a lot of extended homelessness that's occurred during this pandemic. But we also have a lot of those that want to transition back into some type of stable living, particularly those with families. We're also looking at infrastructure. If there's projects for water, sewer, and particularly broadband. You know, in Riverside County, we do have a digital divide. We found that out strongly in this pandemic, with particularly our children being at home and distant learning and the challenge with internet. I know that we had that problem, and I had to work, and I changed our carrier because the internet just wasn't sufficient when you have multiple people utilizing it. So we're looking at countywide. It's been something we've talked in the past, and now we have more of an incentive to look forward to trying to get this situated and making some dramatic progress in this. So that's something we're looking at. We are going to continue to look at nonprofit assistance. And then, of course, the last thing that we'll focus on is revenue backfill. Now, the rental assistance will continue. We already received that funding that's outside of this this particular allocation. But the first payment, just under 240, should come in May. And as I said, the direct allocations for the cities will also be at that time. Stephanie already touched that we will have a county state of the city. We weren't able to have one last year, as most public agencies had challenges with preparing and how do you broadcast the state of the city. So we're looking at how we're going to do that. The chamber, Corona Chamber, will have the first taste of it, and we will be doing a larger one to cover more of the county and the other districts probably in the fall. And two pieces, and I know that Chief Newman will be talking, so I want to tell you how we work collaboratively with our law enforcement. We have just recently worked with our district attorney's office, and I carried a, we call them Form 11s, but it's a kind of like a special interest, and that was on our expanding our Riverside County child exploitation team. I had the opportunity to work with a couple of our DA law enforcement to see what happens. We have spent so much time telling our children to stay off the internet, or we time them and we lock certain areas that can't go on. And now this past year have seen a large change in what's going on the internet with our children. They have strayed away. They're on school, and quite often they're not supervised. So they're on school on the internet after we've told them not to be on the, and now we have to be on there. So in that process, we've seen a more than double increase of predators. They're individuals that are exploiting our children. They're doing meetups. They're doing all kinds of stuff that just is not acceptable. Our children are our future. I know it's a cliche, but our children have suffered this past year, and we will be paying a price for that. They're behind educationally, socially, and we need to do what we can to work with them and give them the best opportunities so that they can move forward and continue to succeed. The other thing I wanted to share is that our Riverside County Sheriff Department and our Riverside Universal Health System are expanding our behavioral health teams. And these are teams that can be deployed to assist in diffusing situations involving mentally ill residents or those that need to have some type of treatment opportunities. This is really important as we have seen an increase in our homelessness, as I mentioned earlier, and we need to head off these situations before they escalate. And law enforcement sometimes has challenges in interacting with these individuals. So now we'll have behavioral health experts that can appropriately handle and identify and get them into appropriate help. So we're not adding new law enforcement personnel in these teams. It's more about the counseling and providing services. You know, we're really looking at the wraparound services so that we can transition folks into more stable living. So this, we call it a Community Behavioral Health Assessment Team, CBAT, and this has been approved and it'll be county-wide. We have 9 new teams working within the entire county. So it's one that we will look forward to continuing, and certainly hoping that we get people who will work with us. One of those is you can certainly call and report. I think Chief Newman now will probably have a way of how to acknowledge that within the city of Corona. But we work hand in hand. Law enforcement is not exclusive. The line in the city boundary does not mean that we don't overlap and we don't work together. Law enforcement is best when we work together. And with that, if there's any questions I can entertain.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Spiegel. I know I'm looking forward to your full presentation on May 21st. Anthony, do we have any questions for the supervisor?
We have several questions. The first being, I understand that there are several $1,000s unused in various grants. What is the county's plan for redistribution, or do those unused funds go back to the federal government?
I will do what we can to not have that go back. We will make sure that as those grants, and we'll be getting more money in for grants on this new ARPA dollars, and we will use those funds first, because those funds, we don't want them to go back. And the other ones, the new dollars can be used, as I said before, for backfill on certain things that were happening during this time, particularly like our homeless situations.
Thank you. And we have one last question. Supervisor, is there any update on the fentanyl and sex crimes?
Interesting question. I am working with staff that we are working with the DA. We have a group. I have an individual who I have known for years. Many of you may know E.J. Fogle, and he approached me while I was at a family gathering down in Lake Elsinore, and we put together a conversation, and I've been working with my county team to see what we can do to move forward and how we can share and educate. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we have so many families, parents, that don't understand the challenges and the detriment that fentanyl has within our families. And that kids just, they're out there partying or whatever, or they get some drug from somebody and don't realize that that could be the final thing they do, that it's life-threatening. And so, yes, we are moving forward on that. Our DA has taken a very hard stand. That's why we're partnering with his office, so that we make sure that it's consistent and we work together and we share and spread the information and education within our communities.
Thank you. And we actually had one more question roll in. Do we have any special plans for ICSC in December, as we have had almost 2 years since we have engaged in the development community?
The county works a little bit differently, but we are waiting to see if they're going to actually be putting together the ICSC. A lot depends. June 15th, which is the magic day when everything opens, and we're having more people hesitant for the large gatherings. ICSC is in Nevada, which is a different state, but they're actually pulling back now because they've had an increasing caseload of coronavirus. So it's a wait and see, but absolutely we go as the county, and we have several cities that utilize the booth that we'll get to move forward. But it has not been something that has been a definite planning. We are looking, so it's kind of a wait and see to see if there's, first off, if the conference is going to be happening, and second, who is going to be interested in going and where the state's at. So, but you're absolutely right. We do need to make a conscious effort. You know, we may not have been out there seeking for businesses to come to Riverside County, but those of you who are aware, there have been quite a few that have made that move, have done some expansions during this, and every city's different. So that's really, we'll have to see what the city of Corona decides to do, but the county is still working within the county jurisdiction.
Thank you, Supervisor. There are no further questions. Back to you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you again, Supervisor Spiegel. Bobby, what else do we have going on?
Well, we have our Coffee with the Entrepreneur, and that is coming up on May 10th. Very exciting to share that this is a partnership with the city of Corona. And each month we invite different entrepreneurs to share tidbits and nuggets for our listening audience. We are still working on doing something to go in person. It may not be on this one, but we will notify you if it will be. But our featured speaker and our entrepreneur is Crystal Lopez. She'll share all of her backgrounds and stuff, but she's totally taken the Corona theme of making lemonade out of lemons to its fullest. We encourage you to be there because at the age of 17, she had major tragedy happen to her. So plug in, register on the bit.ly/coffee May 10. Back to you.
Thank you, Bobby. Next, I would like to introduce the speakers for our legislative update. City of Corona Police Chief Newman and our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson. Chief Newman's role with Corona became effective March 30th, 2021. However, he has been serving the community and working at the Corona Police Department since 1995. In his 25 years of service, Chief Newman has served in various assignments as officer and detective, including Flex and Special Response Team. He has also supervised the K-9 unit, Flex Team, and worked as a relief watch commander. He works tirelessly to ensure that the safety and security of our community. Please welcome Chief Newman.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Kim. Thank you to Stephanie and Bobby also for inviting me to talk, and I'm glad the train just went by right now. It blew their horns while I was on mute, so hopefully we don't get too many more trains coming by here, and I'll mute us if we do. But I want to just preface this and give the caveat that although I appreciate having this opportunity to talk with this group about some potential impacts to our community and our police department, our city, I am a police chief. I'm not a lawyer. So I encourage everybody to kind of do their own research on these bills that I'm going to discuss. And but there is some potential impacts to our community. And so I wanted to initially address Assembly Bill 1372, which is the right to temporary shelter bill. And what that is, in a real quick summary, is it allows for unsheltered individuals to seek civil action against local governments if the local government does not have the ability to provide shelter for a homeless neighbor. If they are seeking shelter for 3 days, and the city or the county, in our case, the city, does not have a facility for them to be sheltered, then that individual can pursue civil action against the local jurisdiction. One of my primary concerns on this, in addition to the fiscal impact that it could have with lawsuits and against the city, is that we are doing our part in the city of Corona. As many of you know, we have Karen Roper, who is our homeless solutions manager for the city, and all of us have kind of come together to present this homeless solutions package for wraparound services for our homeless neighbors and really come up with ends to the issues that we have. And this type of bill may entice unsheltered individuals to come to Corona. They might have more incentive to migrate to Corona because, or other cities could encourage their homeless neighbors to come to Corona because we have a shelter. We're going to have a shelter. And that means that other areas around us could not suffer the impact of a potential civil remedy. And whereas Corona, as soon as our shelter is filled up, then we would then suffer the impact of potential civil remedies because we not only provided the shelter, but now that shelter is filled, and we would be now obligated to provide other housing opportunities for them. So I just have some concerns that will increase our homeless population because of some of the outreach opportunities that we're actually proactively engaged in. And this is definitely, as Supervisor Spiegel said, we are collaborating as a county, and Karen Roper is all over that. But this was a bill that kind of came out of nowhere and was going to drastically penalize a city such as Corona. The other one is a little more specific. The other bill is Senate Bill 2. And this bill more directly impacts law enforcement on its first inception. If you first read it, it is a decertification for law enforcement, for police officers. That is the main emphasis by the authors of the bill, which, to be perfectly blunt, I accept, and I think having decertification within the state is prudent. Meaning what that basically means is that if an officer is terminated or found to have disciplinary matters internally, that there could be a board comprised within the state agency that could review that and revoke the officer's ability to be a police officer. I support that. The problem with this bill in particular is that it buries within the language the removal of qualified immunity for our officers, and how that impacts our city. And I won't even go to how the details, how it really impacts our individual officers, but I will say that it will dramatically decrease our ability to attract and recruit qualified candidates and retain the individuals that we have here. And Corona is such an excellent police department. We really focused on hiring and retaining and training the best. And a bill that removes qualified immunity, basically what that means is that currently qualified immunity will allow an officer to make a quick decision based upon their knowledge of case law, their training, and their experience, with the protection of qualified immunity, knowing that if they violated someone's rights, they cannot be civilly sued if there wasn't a clearly established case law that delineated the negative outcome of that. This, by removal of the qualified immunity, obviously that opens up the gamut for potential lawsuits against law enforcement and our city. Our city, and speaking with our legal team, is reviewing this as well, because we'll need to be prepared to increase our budget. And whereas many cases are dismissed at summary judgment level in court, this could take it to trial. So in regards to that, I just wanted this to be, that's how there is an impact to our law enforcement here in Corona and through that the state. But really my concern on this bill is that because of that concern, that removal of the qualified immunity being in this bill, my concern is for our victims. And I truly believe that our victims will become more victimized, because we in law enforcement will have to adapt our response to violent and immediate opportunities where we have to make, quick life and death decisions, sometimes force option decisions based on our training and experience. And a bill like this would slow us down tremendously. Our officers would need to really think through the situation. And although we think before we act, that is really based on our training and experience. And if that is now removed because of qualified immunity being gone, we could have potential victims being more brutalized because our response has been slowed. Like our response to get to the location would be rapid as it is now, but then our action will be delayed in the fact that we would have to kind of weigh the options that we have. So I wanted to bring those up to this community, and I appreciate you guys giving me that opportunity.
If I could just jump in real quick, Chief. This is Jeff Gibson, and I'm the legislative advocate on kind of some legislative background on these bills and why it's important that we support our police and endorse against both of these. So we've been, as a state, we've been here before, and since 1958, with the short experience of 14 months. Both houses of the state legislature have been dominated by one party. And so any of the criminal justice reforms that the chief is talking about, whether it's anti-camping laws, whether it's dealing with homeless, whether it's holding cities to standards for every city has to take care of their own homeless population, whether it's qualified immunity and then moving over to law enforcement, whether it's qualified immunity or the protections for police officers that have to make life and death decisions on a snap minute. Those have both in all of those cases at different points in California history, basically in the 60s, those were removed. And what did you get? You got homeless. You got police that weren't able to respond to emergencies. And you got and you ended up with, in some cases, some urban police departments were spending 30 to 40% of their budget on lawyers instead of putting that money against fighting crime. And so what you had over the last 25 years was a bipartisan effort to allow cities to deal with their homeless issues, allow cities to deal with their local policing issues locally. And what these two bills, one with the homelessness issue, both of these are sponsored by the trial lawyers. So I know there's a number of people, and you'll see them on TV talking about victims groups and everything else. No, there are groups that want to see police reform, obviously, but these bills specifically are sponsored by the trial bar. So they're looking for the opportunity to sue cities and to sue police officers personally. And that's really what these two pieces are about. And SB2 especially is taking away the authority of the chief to make personnel decisions. It's taking authority away from the chief's rank and file who are in the community today to make policing decisions, because now they could be personally liable. That's what qualified immunity comes to. That doesn't mean that you can go out and serially hurt someone or violate their rights, or that if you're found guilty of something by a jury of your peers that you won't be held responsible. That's where the qualified immunity comes from. This comes from, there's a dispute afterwards between the individual that was stopped and the police officer, and that the benefit of the doubt and the protection in that benefit of the doubt goes to the police officer, because he wasn't acting in his own interest, in his or her own interest. He was acting in the public's interest in trying to protect people. And so these are very common issues that police face every day. And again, these have been widely discussed in the legislature. We moved away from them in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. We had a massive increase in the amount of homelessness. We had a massive increase in the amount of crime. And on a bipartisan basis, the pendulum moved back. So there is a long body of human experience that has been paid for in blood and broken communities, that if we go backward, it is very, very dangerous. And it's not something where it's theoretical, or we can come to this idea. Minneapolis instituted a lot of these, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the chief here, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, just to let you know. Minneapolis Seattle instituted a lot of these policies that are in SB2. and they had a 75% increase in their murder rate. And Minneapolis went from cutting its police budget by $8 million last year to adding $9 million on an emergency basis and looking for another $9 million to add back because they've lost control of their crime. This is very much of the same piece and movement. And it's something that a number of communities, I believe over 75 different communities, have now come back and said no, that they don't want this. And so normally we don't handle crime issues. I'm the author of Jessica's Law. I'm the founder of it. So Prop 83, our LAC chair was one of our statewide chairs in that. And so we definitely have a law enforcement and a protecting victims background, but we don't, bring those here very often. The chief is always welcome to speak, but he's usually busy with his own career and great responsibility on all of our behalf. So appreciate you coming here today, Chief. And if I messed anything up, it's on me. It's not in any coordination with the chief. I just jumped in and couldn't restrain myself. So yeah. I apologize. But
thank you, Jeff. I think you summarized it actually much more eloquently than I could. So I appreciate that. And I do want to reiterate that as a chief for your police department, I stand behind integrity is priority number one for me and our department. And SB2 is not good for law enforcement, not because I'm looking to, hide improper activities of our officers. Like I assure you that integrity is my priority, and we conduct personnel investigations on our officers as diligently as we do any criminal matter for anybody outside. This is really just an impact of, we've already seen a dramatic decrease in our ability to recruit. And this will have a severely negative impact on not only retaining qualified people, but how we provide our service to our community. So.
Exactly.
Well,
so,
thank you, Chief Newman.
Go ahead, Kim.
And Jeff. Before we'll take a vote on these two bills in a moment, but before that, do we have any questions for Chief?
We have two questions for the chief. The first is, Chief, can you share that if we can defeat these restrictions, that it will not protect law enforcement who break the law, that it only helps, quote unquote, the good guys?
Yeah, I think I didn't see that question, but I think that's what I just kind of addressed. That I'm not looking to none of this. None of us in law enforcement want any quote unquote bad apples in law enforcement to be covered up. I believe that if there is a sore in our profession and someone who kind of puts a tarnish to our badge, then they need to be addressed. And like I said, I believe the decertification has value. That portion of the bill has value. I don't want an officer that avoids termination at one place to go work for another agency. I don't think that's important I think that's bad for our state. However, the bill buries a portion of the negative impact to our communities within that positive portion of it. So the way it's written is just not a positive thing for our state or our community.
And if I could just add really quickly. So last year there were 375 million police interactions with the public that were in the enforcement in the pursuit of the enforcement of a law. Out of that, there were 1,100 that ended up in some sort of physical altercation. And out of that, there were, I believe, 35 that resulted in what would be considered a police shooting. And so you're talking about a tiny. Now, each of those is a tragic situation in which no one, in retrospect, would want to participate in. No one on this call, and we are not making light of this of that. But what we're talking about there are more police interactions in the enforcement of a code or stopping the commission of a crime than there are people in the United States every year. And out of that, the number of interactions that we would consider even close to spurring a bill like SB2 are 1,100. And out of those 1,100, so you're talking about 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%. And then south from there, you're talking about less than 1%, I'm sorry, 3% of those interactions, and in the type of incident that would actually make an evening's news broadcast. And so what this bill proposes to do is put every single decision of those 375 million traffic stops, business disputes, family disputes, put all of those in front of a state-appointed local community board, so that that local community board, and not the police chief, can decide, okay, the officer was wrong in that case. There is a higher incidence of financial crime in healthy banks than there are of problems like we're talking about amongst the police. Are there bad police? Absolutely. Is there financial crime in banks? Absolutely. Are there apparatus within banks to do that? Yes. Are we turning banks over to a state-appointed community board? Every single bank? No. Every single insurance agency? No. Every single business? No. And so, as the chief pointed out, decertification, great. But the amount of problem that you're looking at is not really ever considered when you're talking about the difference between 375 million and the number of people that are on this phone call right now. I think we can all tell that the level of problem that you're dealing with.
And I can attest that, here in Riverside County, the chiefs and the sheriffs, we've had great discussions on this topic. As I said, we support the idea of decertification. It's just, as Jeff was saying, the board that is recommended in this bill would be comprised of 9 people, 7 of which would have no law enforcement experience. So just a different, it's not the best bill at this moment. So it's more.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Thank you, Chief. And if you have time, we have one last question. Why do you think Corona's homeless problem is far greater than that of surrounding cities like Norco or Eastvale?
I don't know if that's true. I think everybody has a significant impact with our homeless population now. And I think I was asked that question probably a week or 2 ago. And so I talked to our Hope Team officers who are out there engaged with our homeless neighbors every day. And so our homeless population is congregated along 6th Street. And we have done a pretty good job. And to each of you who are business owners, we have to think of it in 2 ways. When we want to say, hey, let's take enforcement and keep the homeless out of our parks and out of our public areas, which I understand. Well, we're going to go, we're going to clear out certain areas because we do contract with the Path of Life and we have beds available. So we can take enforcement action right now and arrest individuals for camping. However, what that does is it then takes that homeless population, those unsheltered people, and moves them to the Caltrans easements, to the railway easements, to the county areas that we don't necessarily have access to, that we cannot take immediate enforcement or abatement actions on. And so we have ample areas. We have 2 major freeway corridors running through our area. All roads lead through Corona. For any of us who grew up in this town, as I did, all roads lead through Corona. We provide, we have plenty of homeless advocates. We have resources for them. And so our impact, although it appears to be higher than most areas, I think it's just our general population is higher than Eastvale, is higher than Norco. So you're going to see that proportional level being higher with our homeless population. And to go along with that too, in speaking with our homeless outreach team, the majority of our homeless neighbors in Corona are or were Corona residents. They have strong familial ties to people who are still living in Corona. And so you don't see too many transient. There are some coming from outside of the area, but for the most part, they are by and large Corona residents. So why they're out in the streets, whether it's mental health issues, narcotics abuse, addiction issues, it runs the gamut. But we are making our efforts to kind of give them services and give them opportunities, coupled with the enforcement and the rehabilitation side. So we're trying to make that effort to improve the area. And we know that it's a major complaint, not only for our businesses, but for our residents and for our community here in general.
Thank you so much, Chief. We actually got one more question in. However, we are out of time for that. If I could put that question in the chat box, and if you could answer that, that would greatly be appreciated. With that said, we are done with questions at the moment. Back to you, Kim.
Okay, Bobby, can we do one vote for both bills, or do we need to vote separately?
I think that we should be able to do both at one time and see if there is any disagreement. If they both pass, that would be great. So,
okay, at this time, I would welcome a motion to oppose AB 1372 and SB 2.
you can unmute yourself, you can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat. Is there anyone that's going to step up to do that, to oppose these? So Jeff Miller, our chair of our legislative action, has made the motion, and Chad Miller is a second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of opposing AB 1372 and SB 2, please say yes.
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 Any of those opposed to our motion opposing these bills, say nay. Are there any abstaining? Okay, then the motion carries and the Corona Chamber will go on record as opposing AB 1372 and SB 2.
Kim,
Right.
thank you so much, Kim, and we'll put up the slide to our two elected officials in serving the state of California. I'll have Anthony jump through and do that as I go through a couple of other things. Do you have that at the end, the slide? Keep going, right there. So leave that up for just a moment so all of you can see that. You'll also get the email later that has this, but we do want you to notify Assembly Member Sabrina Cervantes and State Senator Richard Roth and let them know your opinions. You as an individual business owner, you as a resident, you as a constituent, of where you stand on these different bills every single week. So Chief, thank you so much for coming on today. And if you can now put the slides back. I'm going to be talking about membership right now. The advocacy outreach that we do every single week is so important. There are so many things that are going on, and Jeff Gibson will be up here in just a minute to share some additional things that are going on statewide. But part of the Chamber of Commerce is membership. And we encourage you, if you are not already a member of the Corona Chamber, if you could connect with Robert Yanez, and he is our membership specialist. His slide is now on the screen, and he's a great guy that can actually sit down and focus in how best to receive the most benefits for your individual business. It's not just a cookie cutter type of a program. Robert can sit down and learn a little bit more about your company and then be able to express the different ways that would be best for you to get the most exposure. So we encourage you to do that. If you're already a member, you know, I'd like you to look through your Rolodex of people, and for the younger generation, your contacts on your cell phone of people that you do business with, who you write checks to, who you Venmo to for business. And if they're a business, they should be part of our chamber. By you referring them over to Robert, you're going to be getting some benefit as well. He'll share with you on how what is all done there. But we do want to grow the chamber. We want to have every business possible be part of our organization. So with that, I know that we make a big impact. We just look to make a bigger impact. Back to you now.
Thank you, Bobby. At this time, we will shift to our advocacy segment where our legislative advocate, Jeff Gibson, will share. Keeping a pulse on what is happening in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. could be a full-time job. With Jeff Gibson's thorough and complete research, he helps the Corona Chamber to act timely on projects and initiatives that help make a difference in shaping our community. As owner of Occidental Communications Group, Jeff Gibson takes a 40,000-foot view on most proposed bills and then dissects them to our level and how we as business owners and managers will be impacted by these proposed bills. His knowledge of complex political issues and the great relationships he has ensure the Corona Chamber has all the tools to be effective on behalf of the business community. Please help me welcome Jeff Gibson to share a legislative update.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. So we have 2 slides today for you. The first is the AB 1465, which is a bill by the Assembly Majority Leader Reyes, a Democrat from San Bernardino. A lot of you rely on medical provider networks to help save costs and improve service for your workers' comp insurance systems, and they have proven overall. Again, just like we talked about with the previous, right? We can talk about the 35 times the system didn't work or the 375 million times the system did work. And so overall, the system works very well. It actually helps contain costs in most incidents while providing an efficient and effective level of care for workers who happen to be injured during the course of their employment. And what AB 1465 is saying is, because we had a pandemic, that the only way that we can guarantee workers an additional level of protection is to add a state medical provider network that would then apportion that employers would pay for, the state would not pay for, and that would then apportion care as it sees fit. And one of the standards for that care is that when you enroll a employee in your system, in your workers' compensation system, that you would have to guarantee that they have access to a physician without having to get into a vehicle to get there. So within walking distance. So you can immediately see how this starts to break down for employers. You get out of the business that you're in, and you get into the business of saying, okay, well, I just hired someone from Chino. I need to make sure that there's a medical provider for them that they can walk to, and that medical provider can send me a note saying that they would have the 24/7 access to the office, that the worker would have 24/7 access to the practice, and on and on and on. And so it's been labeled a job killer by the California Chamber, and we obviously are in agreement that it's a job killer as well. So before I move on to the next issue, happy to take any questions or consider or have Kim conduct a vote.
Anthony, do we have any questions regarding this bill?
There are no questions.
Okay. Let's see. At this time, I would welcome a motion to oppose AB 1465.
And Kim, I will tell you that I missed Yolanda on a second before, so I'm sure that she is going to be a motion on this one, Yolanda Carrillo.
Okay, we already have a first for Jeff Miller, and Gil Coronado is a second for opposing AB 1465. So is there any further discussion regarding AB 1465? All right, seeing no further discussion, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of opposing AB 1465, please say yes.
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 All those opposed to our motion of opposing this bill, say nay. Are there any abstaining? Okay, the motion carries and the Corona Chamber will go on record opposing AB 1465.
Next up, since the last time we met, the governor has issued an executive order outlawing the production of oil in the state of California. If you remember, and you've come on our Sacramento trips, the Jerry Brown signed into law in coordination with the leaders of the Environmental Caucus in the state legislature only 4 short years ago. So, quoting that the state of California cannot ignore 98 billion barrels of oil, and which is roughly equal. We now have provable reserves underneath in urban disturbed areas. So all of the areas that where there's been oil exploration in California over the last 100 years. And one of the things that gets overlooked because Texas has a lot of oil and other states have a lot of oil is that Avila Bay, California, up until 1951 was the world's most active oil port. And that Bakersfield, California was the most active oil producing area in the United States from about 1910 to about 1960. And what happened in 1960? Well, Pat Brown happened in 1960. And Bakersfield went from producing hundreds of thousands of jobs and leaders and everything else. And now we have thousands of miles of pipeline and wellheads and all of these different access points, and the oil is still in the ground and utilizing only a fraction. And remember, this is Jerry Brown working with the Sierra Club 4 years ago, came up with a plan that would use a fraction of the existing oil infrastructure to access an amount of oil roughly equal to Venezuela, using all of the best technology available to California to produce it to California standards, so that we wouldn't have to, as we have been in the past, purchase 97% of our oil either from the Middle East, that has a number of countries that do not share any of our either climate goals or sociological goals, or Venezuela, which obviously is the same. And so, because California, even though we are connected by common borders to the rest of this country, we are an energy island. And so we have to produce the oil because of the way we regulate everything that happens. Well, the governor on Thursday decided that after 2023, the state would no longer issue short-term or long-term petroleum production permits in the state. Every single producing well has to have a production permit that lasts anywhere from 18 months to 5 years. And that by 2030, the governor is going to have removed, it's his pledge that he's running in the recall campaign. So you're going to be seeing a lot of this, that by 2030, California will have removed the oil industry from California. Well, that's 50,000 jobs filled mostly by people that graduated from high school that pay $121,000 a year on average. And so if you're looking for social mobility, if you're looking for a very little environmental trade-off, I don't know of anybody who thinks that you're going to reduce your carbon footprint by having oil produced in a third world country, put on a boat, and brought here to California, because there is not a pipeline where we get Texas crude. There's not a pipeline in which we get North Dakota crude. There's no oil train coming in from Utah or from Colorado or from South Dakota or from Pennsylvania. Everything that we get, all of the energy that we get that's in your car today, either came from a boat that was docked in Oakland, San Pedro, Long Beach, or San Diego, or was produced here in California. And so this is This is a much bigger piece of news than it was given, and it's going to have a huge impact on the hundreds of thousands of people that are employed by the energy industry in California at a time when it was revealed last night by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that California was 45th on job production last year, and that in terms of job losses, it was 47th, and that would be best, so, or third worst. These are, we always used to say, well, you know, we don't want to compete with states like Mississippi. Well, we're not, because Mississippi, as a percentage of its population, produced well more jobs than the state of California did. And so we're not in, we have reached Jerry Brown's stated goal of never being in competition with small states that he would never want to visit, because all of those states are producing jobs and we are literally removing 50,000 jobs for which there's no replacement. So, or no replacement offered. And so what I would like to do, it is unusual. We don't normally take a position on a executive order, but normally we've never had a governor that with the stroke of his own pen has bypassed the legislature and eliminated an entire industry before. So the governor is doing something that should only be done through the legislature. Obviously, it should never be done, but this is why we have a legislature. So since he's acting as a one-man legislature or a one-gendered person legislature, then we should, then we're going to have to take a position and communicate that forward.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Jeff regarding this topic before we move to a vote?
Not on this topic specifically, but we do have one question for Jeff. With all the legislation being introduced, how do you select the ones you bring to us, and why do you encourage letters to be sent only on a select few?
So there are, that's a very good question. And there are about 1,000 pieces of legislation. Well, there are 1,150 pieces of legislation that are introduced each year. And so we could take a position on all of those. And there are some chambers that do. We only take positions on pieces of legislation in which groups like ours could make a difference. And there are pieces of legislation that have impact on businesses that we don't take a position, in very large part because we can't speak into everything. It's very similar to a politician. Politicians, good ones, will very regularly say, we don't know, or that isn't my committee, or I will find an expert for you. And that's the position that we take. We don't want to represent to you that we, as a group of 800, can be active and involved and have an immediate impact on 1,150 pieces of legislation, when in reality, there really are only about 25 to 30 that we could have a big impact in. That's why we pursue those. And we pursue them with laser focus. That's why we have a 75 to 80% win ratio each year. And we're effective because otherwise we're just sending letters. And after 30 years of working in the legislature, that's why they have interns to open letters from chambers of commerce and put them in a file. And at the end of the year, that file goes away. It gets put out in the hallway in a banker's box. That banker's box gets thrown out and never heard from again. So we look at who the author is, how the bill is moving through. Do we know any of the committee chairs that are in the path that we can speak to? Because they're ones that can take the author aside and do different items. There's a whole strategy to how we analyze the bills that we look at. We do partner a lot with the California Chamber of Commerce because they are very effective at finding bills that are very similar. If you look at the approach that they take, they oppose a lot of bills, but they really focus on about 25 to 30 bills that would have a gigantic impact on the state of California. We don't partner on every single one of their issues, but we do on about 50%, 50 to 75%. And then we go out and find other bills on our own. And, but each of them are so I think that kind of handles it. If we can't play a role, I'm not going to play a game with you guys that, oh, we killed such and such a bill. Oh my gosh, the governor took something out of the budget. No, that's not. No, we are a group of employers who sign the front of checks every day. And just as you can't misrepresent yourself to your employees, you don't want to be a part of an association or an organization that would misrepresent what it's doing to you. And so we respect everybody on that. And that's why we do what we do.
Kim, I think we're ready for the vote.
Okay. At this time, I would welcome a motion to oppose the executive order to end oil production in the state of California. We have a motion.
Come on, people. Anybody?
Well, I did see in the chat from Leah
It's a
Peters.
no-brainer. I move to oppose.
Okay, thank you, Jeff Miller. We have a second.
And Jeff drives a hybrid.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of opposing the governor's executive order to end oil production in the state of California, please say yes.
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 Are all those opposed to our motion, opposing this executive order, please say nay. Any abstaining? Okay, the motion carries and the Corona Chamber will go on record as opposing the governor's executive order to end oil production in the state of California. As Jeff mentioned, please reach out to your local representatives, Assembly Members Sabrina Cervantes and Senator Richard Roth, both of whose contact information is provided on your screen. And again, we thank you both, Chief Newman and Jeff, for providing us with these critical updates today. Bobby?
Thank you. And again, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to my wife, the County Supervisor, Karen Spiegel, for doing an outstanding job for our district and for the county as a whole. She is the chair of the overall organization this year, something that she does not take lightly. Now that we're reopening Riverside County, her schedule is going crazy. And we just wanted to say to her and the entire county, thank you for the partnership that you have with the Chamber of Commerce, with the business community, and with all of us here. Thank you for a job well done, Karen, and thank you to the county.
Okay, if you would like to sponsor a future business briefing, please contact the Chamber. Register now to join us next Wednesday for more advocacy news. Thank you everyone for attending. Our meeting is adjourned.